Hey everybody! In this presentation, I'm going to show you how to measure the RF values for your candy chromatography experiment and show you where to fill out the data in your data table that you have to answer. So if you'll just view the next few slides and listen to what I have to say, we'll make this pretty easy. When you first remove your chromatograph from the solution in the cup, hopefully when you roll it out you see something like this, and you see that each of the dyes has either stopped in its location or in some cases even spread out into more than one dye. And hopefully you can see the separation on those. The first thing you're going to want to do is draw yourself a line across what we call the solvent front. This is where your water stopped at. So we want to just try, and I'm not drawing a very good, there we go, get a little bit straighter there. You just kind of want to draw a straight line across that. I know it'll be kind of wavy, or maybe one spot will stick up further than others, but you kind of just do your best to draw a straight line average across that solvent front. And then you're also going to want to circle the main section of each of the dye spots that you see. If some of them have a really long tail, you don't have to include that, so I'm just going to circle the main bodies that I see there. And I see 1, 2, and 3 on the brown. And I'm going to put a dot in about the center of each of those. Guys, this is not an exact measurement. You don't have to spend all day getting the center. Just do the best you can. Okay, now that you have everything circled and ready to measure, the first thing you are going to measure is the solvent front, and you will put that value here. So the way you're going to measure that is you're going to put your ruler, your 0 mark on the line that you started from right here, and you will measure how far your line that you drew is. You can see in my case it was 13.8 centimeters, so I would write 13.8 there in that box. After that, you are going to measure how far each of those spots traveled. So for my red M&M, I should only see one spot, and you can see that from the start line to the center dot is about 3.1 centimeters. So I would put 3.1 in that slot there. And then I move over to my blue M&M, and I notice that it only has one spot, and it traveled about 11.5 centimeters. So I will put 11.5 centimeters there. And then my yellow one here, I would measure as well. I would measure the green one. I have 2 spots on the green ones. And notice that I have 2 spots for green spots there. In fact, for the brown, you'll notice that I have 3 spots. I have one at 2.6, so I could just call that one spot 3 if I wanted to. I have one that traveled 5.1 centimeters and one that traveled 11.4 centimeters. So I will list all 3 spots for that one. I'm not going to measure all of these, but you will do all of the spots. You'll notice that you should have 1 for red, 1 for orange, 1 for yellow, 1 for blue, 2 for green, and 3 for brown. If you did not get all of those spots, you may want to try again. That's why I provided you with a second piece of paper. And so now we want to calculate the RF values for each spot that you see here on your spreadsheet. The RF value is basically a ratio of how far that particular dye traveled versus how far the solvent front traveled. It tells you what percentage the dye made it, basically. So for this red dot here, I'm going to show you how to calculate this RF value. You take the number here, how far it traveled, 3.1, and divide it by the number here, the distance the solvent traveled, 13.4. So you will just type in your calculator those values, and I have to grab my calculator here myself. And if you do 3.1 divided by 13.4, My calculator says something like 0.23134328. So I'm just going to round that to 0.23. And so I would put 0.23 in that box. For the brown ones, you will calculate 3 different RF values. You'll notice my top spot here, 11.4 centimeters. This spot right here, we'll calculate his RF value. It will be 11.4 divided by 13.4. And when I punch that into my calculator, I get 0.85 when I round it off, 0.85. So you guys are going to do that for all of the spots. You should do 1 for red, 1 for orange, 1 for yellow, 1 for blue, 1 for green, 1 for green, so 2 for green, and 3 total for the brown. The final part of the lab is trying to determine which dyes are represented by the dots you see on the M&M chromatogram. So you're going to do a visual comparison as well as a comparison of the RF values to try to determine which dye makes up those colors. You will see here I have performed a chromatograph on the 7 dyes individually. So you can see I have red 3, red 40, yellow 5, yellow 6, blue 1, blue 2, and green 3. I ran them just as you did the dyes in the M&Ms, and then I measured and calculated their RF values here. So I'll do the red one for you. It says we have a red spot that traveled 3.1 centimeters and had an RF value of 0.23. So obviously we're going to look for a red dye. It's either going to be red 3 or red 40. I see that my red dye had an RF value of 0.23, and the red 3 had an RF value of 0.04, and the red 40 had an RF value of 0.15. Well, the 0.23 is certainly much closer to the 0.15, and the red spot that I see resembles the red spot from the M&M much more closely. So I'm going to call that one, or I'm going to suspect that that one is red 40. Look at the first or the highest spot for the brown down here. You'll notice I have an RF value of 0.85, and if I remember, it's kind of a blue spot as well. I see that I have a spot of blue dye, blue 1, that is 0.86 from the standards here. So that means that this one is probably blue 1. So you guys just need to use that kind of analysis to determine which dyes make up the colors on the M&Ms. Red only has 1 dye, orange only has 1 dye, yellow only has 1, blue has 1, green has at least 2, and brown has at least 3. I will say that some students have pointed out that the browns have seemingly had 4 as of late. They may have changed the formulation at some point, but we'll just stick for 3 for now. If you can just identify 3 in the brown dye, you've done well.